Oh, that sounded promising.
Hi, Scott, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. I can. Excellent. That's fantastic. Good
Okay.
news.
I've disconnected my face microphone, so I'm kind of relying on the laptop microphone at the moment. But we'll see where we get to with that one.
Yeah. Okay, that's better. Okay, excellent. Yeah, okay. Shall I just go through the? Do you want to read the questions out, or should I just? I have them here on my other screen, so I can just go through them now if you like. Would that work?
Yeah, sure, that'd be great.
Okay, cool. Is LinkedIn the next big thing or the last big thing? I used to only have a LinkedIn account because so that I would have somewhere to put all the people who asked me to be connected to them on LinkedIn. I wasn't really a believer. I guess I've really started using it in the last couple of years a lot. And yeah, I actually have I maintain my LinkedIn page, which I didn't do for the first 5 years that I had one. I don't know. I'm not sure I've ever found it particularly useful. Um, I mean, it's kind of fun to have that big list of people, but my email contacts list is a big list of people as well, and often maybe a slightly better filtered list. So I guess I do it because everyone else does it, but maybe I'll go for the last big thing. I do know somebody, one of my old students, did sell them his startup for an enormous slug of money. So someone's done well out of it. Last time I saw him, he was looking very sleek and happy. So like I say, someone's benefiting.
I don't know if you can hear me properly, but I guess my question was, I mean, I agree. It's a very functional tool. There's a lot of information there, and I know a lot of recruiters that use LinkedIn as their kind of real-time database. And for that reason, as a job seeker, it's important to kind of keep your profile up to date and so on. The sort of trick that I think they're missing is they seem to be sitting on 187 million records of data, and I'm not quite sure what they do with it, or perhaps intend to do with it, and that's why it seems like have they gone as far as they can go, or actually is there an ambition to turn it into something really useful?
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I mean, there seem to be new features, but like I say, I have, I think if you compare it with Facebook as a platform, Facebook have made a real effort to make their, to make it work for third-party application vendors, and I know there are third-party LinkedIn applications, and I think that my friend's startup made one of those. But it feels like a very quiet place compared to Facebook. I mean, maybe that's not bad. Maybe it's not bad to be not having people throw sheep at you all the time. But I don't know. Like I say, I guess I probably had. Let's see, what have I got? I've got about 1,000. Got about 1,000 connections on LinkedIn. I've probably had 5 to 10 recruiter approaches in the entire time I've used it. I've never used it to recruit. I don't know. I guess I've gone through my period of being. I've gone through my period of checking it every day. I've now gone to the period of checking it every. I did this with Facebook as well. I went through the period of checking it every day, every hour, and then every day, and then every week, and then every month, and then I'm not sure I've logged into it this year. So I think maybe I'm following the same trajectory with LinkedIn, just a little bit later. I do use the. I think I do use it for the CV though. I do. I think it is where my CV lives for now, right? Because you can print off a CV from it. So I think that's where my CV lives. But I think it's been a long time since I've needed one. It's been a long time since I've been looking for it, since I've looked for a job. So no, it's interesting. Yeah, I'm going to say last big thing. Okay. The next question was, why IT recruiters in the UK are reluctant to exploit transferable and creativity skills while sourcing candidates. I don't know. Are you online? Bishweshwar, are you online? I'd like maybe to know a bit more about the question. I guess if you're in the text chat, maybe. I don't know. I mean, transferable and creativity skills, by and large, when recruiting in the past, I haven't really, I've always been very focused on the skills that people need for the jobs that well, two things, I guess: the skills that people need for the jobs that I'm trying to staff, and evidence that they're good at picking up new skills. Because whatever I hire them for this year is probably not going to be what I want them to be doing in a year's time. So, I mean, creativity skills. I guess that's a creative skill, right? The ability to pick up new skills is kind of a creative skill. I'd expect any decent recruiter to play that up, to pay a lot of attention to that, because I think that the end customer would be paying a lot of attention to it as well. If you are online, then I've misinterpreted your question, and then do let me know. To type something in. Here's a good one. As somebody in their 50s and unemployed after a long career in IT, ranging from feeding cards into huge mainframes to enabling the interconnected world of today, what benefits do you see me gaining from the opportunities offered by Raspberry Pi? I mean, I guess that the Pi is no different from. We have to think about what's special about the Pi. And what's special about the Pi is it's cheap. It's just a Linux box, but it's cheap, and I guess it's a platform to the extent that it's got benefit. I mean, you sound like you're somebody with a kind of an enterprise kind of background. I mean, to the extent that it's got a specific benefit for somebody with that kind of background, it's that it's a very cheap Unix box. And what this means is that it brings a range of jobs, I guess, in embedded fields, which traditionally would have required a very different skill set, a much lower level, a much more kind of bare metal kind of skill set. It brings those tasks and therefore those jobs within the range of people who have a more Unix-like skill set. And one of the really lovely things about the Pi is that we're seeing people who normally wouldn't have got so involved in hardware hacking, people who wouldn't have got involved in anything that looked like an embedded system, being able to bring their skill set across. So I guess that's probably the benefit, as far as I can see. I see that Scott is typing. So Scott is another ZX81 guy. Yeah, I had my very first machine was a ZX81 that I got off a friend that he didn't need anymore. It turned out the reason he didn't need it anymore was that it didn't work. So it was technically my first computer, but not my first computer that I did any programming on. It may have worked. It may just be that I didn't understand how to plug it into the TV. Yeah, that was a real machine. I have with me on my desk this thing. Let's get that away from the camera a little bit. This is the 2006 Raspberry Pi, which has an Atmel microcontroller and a big block of SRAM on it. It's got an enormous amount in common actually with the ZX81 in terms of how it generates its video signal. ZX81 did some really devious stuff to get a video signal out of the Z80 and a little bit of RAM. So yeah, I'm a big fan. We have a guy here who actually works at Broadcom who designed the best-selling high-resolution graphics board for the ZX81. So got a bit of history there. Hi there. So let's see. Roger, I answered your question.
Sorry.
Were you not online?
I had a bit of problem connecting, unfortunately. I've just managed to get in.
Oh, damn it. Okay, I'll ask you a question again, and maybe give a more coherent answer this time. I think it looked from your question like you're an enterprise guy, like you got a strong enterprise background. I mean, to the extent that the Raspberry Pi has, yeah. Interesting thing about the Raspberry Pi is it's a cheap Unix box, right? It's a cheap embedded Unix box, and so to the extent that it's got a relevance to somebody with that particular skill set, it's that it brings a whole bunch of new job opportunities, a whole bunch of new applications, and therefore job opportunities within reach of people who have Linux-like, Unix-like, enterprise-grade IT skills, where previously you would have needed an embedded systems skill set. You can now go and do hardware interfacing projects with at reasonable cost, with an enterprise skill set, and of course bring some of those enterprise skills. So you see a lot of people doing enterprise Java Beans type stuff. You see people doing connecting enterprise buses to pieces of physical hardware using the Pi as a bridge. So I think that's probably the answer that I had for that. Other than that, it's just a cheap Linux box, right? So it's got, got to focus on the fact that the Pi, there's nothing, the special thing about the Pi is it's cheap. Not that it does anything you couldn't do before. But I think there's value in costing 25 quid. A question about the role and impact of massive open online courses in IT education and skills development. I mean, MOOCs are kind of, three things I think are exciting are things like Raspberry Pi, so cheap accessible computing, fabrication technology, so 3D printing, laser cutters, stuff like that. So yeah, those two together are things that they're both very powerful tools for letting you build at small scale things that previously you would have needed to be a very large organization to build. And then the other interesting one is MOOCs, because they allow you to learn the stuff that you need in order to make use of the other two, and do it without making the kind of obscene cost investments in education that you'd otherwise have to make. So yeah, MOOCs are, those three together. In fact, Raspberry Pi's featured there've been a number of articles, and there's going to be some conferences I think this coming year which have that kind of triumvirate, cheap compute, cheap fabrication, and cheap education as being kind of like three things that are going to drive a big change. I guess I'm much less worried about my skills staying current now than I was 10 years ago, because there's this amount of access to online education which makes a real difference. Okay. A question I would like to ask whether gaining industry experience without IT qualifications is possible. So here are people gaining MS and Cisco qualifications after securing a job. That's a very interesting question. And I'm going to betray my ignorance of the IT industry, right? That I'm a maths, physics, hacking kind of guy, and so I've never had a professional qualification in computing. I've never been a MCSE or anything like that, or a Cisco certified engineer. I don't know. I would say though that I've worked for Broadcom for 6 years, and in general, I think I mentioned it at the start of the Hangout. When hiring people, we probably cared as much about what our assessment of their ability to learn new stuff than about their ability to do things when they come in the door. And I think it's a foolish employer. It's a foolish employer who hires just on the basis of what the person knows, because that those skills are always going to be a wasting asset. So I don't see why not. I think an enlightened employer should let you do that. An enlightened employer probably should hire you on the basis of whether they think you can get the qualification, not whether you have it. But I don't know to what. Like I say, I haven't really worked in what you'd class as the IT industry, so I'm not sure that I would have any particularly good insight into that. Let's see what else. almost every job listing in the IT sector requires several years of experience, often specified experience doing the job listed, even for entry-level positions. How do you break this catch-22? Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? It's my perception is, and this may be coloured by the fact I'm based in Cambridge, so there's an enormously strong job market here, is that people are, for the right candidate, people waive these requirements. If the person looks good, if you walk in the door here for an interview, and you look bright, you're going to get hired. And those sorts of, absolutely we write that stuff down because our HR department makes us write that stuff down. But ultimately, if you're the right candidate, then it doesn't really matter. So I think that's the answer is be bright, be educated, and be able to point to something you've done. I think people who suffer, certainly in our interview system, people who suffer are people who don't give any evidence of ever having had an interest in computers. We tend to hire people who are. We tend to hire people who look like enthusiasts. We tend to hire people who look like hobbyists. And I suggest that one little piece of evidence that you did something in the evening with a computer, maybe with a Raspberry Pi, one little piece of evidence that you did a piece of computing you didn't have to do, that you didn't do for the money to put bread on the table, is worth a year of having turned up at a job, of evidence that you turned up at a job. So, like I say, your mileage may vary if you're not in somewhere like Cambridge, which is full of companies who are fighting tooth and nail for the best talent. What else? Ooh. What is the future of Agile? What is its impact on the evolution of business analysis methodology? I didn't really know anything about Agile until about 3 months ago, and I had to go and give a talk at a conference about Agile. And I went and downloaded a copy of the Agile Manifesto. I'm sort of instant convert. I mean, Agile feels like a bit of a cult, but it's kind of the cult of, let's call it the cult of the obvious. Sounds kind of derogatory, but I mean, it is the case that it's good sense. All the stuff that's in the Agile Manifesto is stuff which a smart engineer or smart engineering team will be doing anyway. I mean, maybe not calling it a Scrum or whatever, but so I think the future is very bright for it, just because it makes sense more than anything else. I'm not sure it's particularly helpful to stick a name on it, but yeah, I had a good time in Cornwall anyway in September, hanging out with some Agile guys. So I'm a convert to the cause. I'm a true believer. Okay, Sylvester Klassen asks, basically, because the relative power of hardware allows more immediate support of full-fledged operating systems. So I think his question is, if you're one of these people who I was talking about in my answer to Roger's question, if you're one of these people who specialises in doing kind of down and dirty embedded systems hacking, and platforms like Raspberry Pi mean that people like Roger can come and do those jobs now with an enterprise background. Should the people who have previously specialized in embedded systems get out of embedded systems, go do something else? In particular, should they go and become ASIC architects? Should they go and do VLSI? It's an interesting question. I don't know. I think that those people can keep doing those jobs just because there's a bigger, I believe in the future there'll be a bigger supply of people who can do those jobs. But I think there's also a bigger supply of those jobs to do. So I don't think it's a disaster. I don't see anyone's career prospects disintegrating. If you're a good embedded systems engineer in an RTOS, you'll be a good embedded systems engineer on a Linux-like platform. So you can keep doing the job. I personally am not sure that I would suggest going into VLSI. There's a lot of VLSI work being pushed out to low-cost geographies. So I'm not sure that I would. I'm not sure that I personally would see that as a growth area. On the other hand, it is an area that Britain is currently very strong in. So there are jobs today. It's a question of whether it's the optimum place to go for jobs in the future. And I had one more. There was one more question, I think. There's a bit of an editing error. So let me just have a quick look. Yeah, I think I have 2 copies of one of these questions. Let me So I think I've exhausted my supply of questions, of pre-prepared questions. So does anyone on the call have a question? Have any more questions? Okay. Oh. Yeah. So yes, I take your point. I mean, yeah, Agile's great for product development, and it sort of feels like it's great for particular sorts of product development. But I mean, I've been on both sides of the kind of professional consulting, both sides of the professional consulting divide, and it certainly is the case that I can see that if I was buying professional services in particular, and the professional services organisation was employing an agile methodology, I might not find the agility to be a positive thing, right? I guess is that what you're saying? I'm not sure I would find I think the predictability is maybe better than the agility. That said, I mean the agile guys, their manifesto does talk about how, the thing that the customer's paying for is to get the job done, and not to get a document that talks about getting the job to how you're going to get the job done. So you should spend more time on the former and less on the latter. So I don't know. It's, like I say, my experience is coloured by the fact that I experienced it in Cornwall, which is one of the nicest places to experience anything in the UK. So on the beach, it's called Agile on the Beach. It's a lovely conference they run every year in September, and it lives up to its name. So, it's all good fun. Typing is happening. Do I think that programming will be taught in the school classroom again? Yeah, I think it's pretty much inevitable now. Having Eric Schmidt turn up and tell the government that they're fools to throw away Britain's heritage in programming, I think it lit a rocket under people. I think it's pretty much inevitable that we're going to see something. I think the challenge is going to be to make sure that it's appropriate, to make sure that it can be delivered by the teachers who we have in place. I think there's a big debate going on at the moment around teacher training, and about whether it's feasible to train our teachers up to be experts, to be expert computer programmers. deliver the courses from the standpoint of being expert programmers, or whether what we need to do is find a way that non-experts can deliver a satisfying introductory programming course and feel confident doing it. But I'd probably angle towards the latter. I think that trying to solve the programming education problem by upskilling all of the ICT teachers in the country to be professional software engineers is not necessarily it's going to be a very time-consuming and non-scalable activity. So I probably angle towards the latter, and I think you can do it. It just requires an enormous investment in course material, and it requires a well-designed curriculum. And I think hopefully we'll find out next year and a half. Hopefully we're going to see both of those by the start of the 2014 academic year. Awesome. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, guys. That's really appreciated. I'm going to click on end the broadcast now. So thanks very much for your time and your questions, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks very much.